Aloha, welcome to our video on the light reaction, the first step of photosynthesis. Our goals today are to recognize that sunlight's made up of different wavelengths. I also want you to recognize that pigments in green leaves absorb light, and also we'll describe how light energy is used to produce ATP and NADPH. So let's talk a little bit about sunlight. Okay, so now our sun is a star and it's going through a process of nuclear fission. So it's taking hydrogen and forming helium and various other things. And a result of that process is a lot of energy being released out as electromagnetic radiation. Okay, and that's a big fancy word for all of the stuff you see right here. Okay, so the sunlight's going to be emitting out gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, infrared rays, radar waves, shortwave, radio waves, all that kind of stuff. But we're looking at this little portion right here, which we call visible light. And this is the light waves that our eyes can pick up on. So it ranges anywhere from about 400 nanometers up to about 750 nanometers or so. Okay, and you can see here at our 400s are where we're going to have our violets, and our 700s are where we're going to have our reds. And you can see kind of like the whole spectrum of the rainbow. So that's where all of our visible colors are seen. So even though the sun is going to emit out a whole bunch of other stuff, this is the part that we're going to spend most of our time on photosynthesis dealing with. Okay, so let's talk about pigment absorption, okay? And what we're going to talk about is what light is being absorbed by the plant pigments. So first, let's take a look at these pigments real quickly. We have chlorophyll A here and chlorophyll B here, and those are our primary green pigments. Then we also have some accessory pigments, which are like the carotenoids, which are going to be kind of orangey and reddy and things like that. That's why carrots are orange. But primarily, what I want you to see is notice that how much more of the chlorophylls that we have coming through here and how much more they absorb. This little line here that you're looking at, these lines right here shows us the absorption. So under what wavelengths are they absorbing more energy? And if we look at our chlorophylls, they're absorbing a lot down in here, and they're picking up a lot in here, and they're not picking up down through here. And this light that it's not picking up is what's being reflected back out, and that's when we're looking at it. Our eyes over here are going to be taking a look at the plants, and what we see is this light coming off, and that's why the plant appears to be green. Okay, because it's going to absorb all of the other wavelengths except for the greens, and that's what's being released out, and that's what we can see. So these chlorophyll pigments are absorbing the energy from the sunlight except for the green. So all of these wavelengths and these wavelengths that it's absorbing, that's where it's getting the energy for photosynthesis to happen. Okay, so there are two processes of photosynthesis. The first one that we're going to talk about is the light reaction, and that's what the rest of this video will be about. And then the next video we'll talk about the dark reaction. Okay, so the light reaction starts off with water and ADP and NADP+, and it's going to form oxygen, which is released out, and that's what we use to breathe. It's also going to make some ATP and some NADPH, and both the ATP and NADPH are going to be used later for this dark reaction. Okay, the dark reaction will also take in carbon dioxide, and that is how we end up making our sugars. So if you remember with photosynthesis, we talked about taking in water and carbon dioxide and adding the energy of the sun, and we made oxygen and sugar. So you can kind of see the equation here is broken up a little bit, and we'll spend some time now studying this light reaction so we can see what's going on there. So where does the light reaction occur? It happens here in the chloroplasts. And more specifically, it's going to happen here on the thylakoid discs in the thylakoid membrane. You'll see that here. Okay, and we'll talk about the different processes and how it goes through, but I wanted you to get a quick overview of where it does occur. Okay, so let's take a more detailed look at the light reaction. Remember that it takes a little bit of sunlight, and that's how this whole process is going to be working. So as the sunlight comes down and hits the plant, the chlorophyll pigments are going to absorb that energy, and they are going to charge up some electrons. And these electrons are going to enter into our photosystem 2 here. And notice how it looks an awful lot like the electron transport chain from cellular respiration. And we'll see that some of the same things are going to be happening here. So now, once again, as these electrons are here and they're going to move along this process to photosystem 1, we'll see that hydrogen is going to be transferred into it. So these hydrogens are going to be transferred in, just like they were during the electron transport chain. Okay, so we're seeing the energy from the sun causes these electrons to form here, okay, or to migrate to the photosystem 2, and they're going to migrate along here to photosystem 1, and as they do so, we're going to pump hydrogens inside. Now, if you can recall, we had 2 electrons over here, and with a little more energy, what's going to happen is these electrons are going to be moved from photosystem 1 over to NADPH here, and that's how we form that. And that's our first product, is this NADPH. Now our second product that was formed is going to be this oxygen over here. If you can recall, it was over here as a water molecule, and it's going to shed its hydrogen. So its hydrogens are going to be released out here, and as that happens, it's going to release some electrons into photosystem 2 once again. So we have another way of putting electrons into photosystem 2. Now, as you've seen, we've been collecting excess hydrogen here. That hydrogen will then move down ATP synthase, and we will form our ATP. So that is going to be our third product of the light reaction. So remember, we had electrons, and as the electrons moved through this way, okay, ultimately they pumped in hydrogen as they were doing that, but then these electrons here in photosystem 1 were used to make NADPH. Okay, we brought in water, and the water shed its hydrogen, and as it shed its hydrogen, it gave us these electrons here, which would move down and form more NADPH. These extra hydrogens then are pumped out through ATP synthase, and they form this ATP. So that's how we get our 3 different products for the light reaction. Okay, so let's look at the light reaction as a summary real quickly. Remember, we're putting into the system light energy and water, and we're making ATP, NADPH, and hydrogen, and all of these are going to be used later on in the dark reaction, but we're also producing oxygen gas, which is then released out into the air, which we can breathe in. So that's it for our video. The lessons will go into it in a little more depth. Good luck with the lessons, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.